Look, your 6 seconds starts now. Should MPs be allowed to do this?
Absolutely not. Look, being an MP is a full-time job. You get a decent wage, you get 81 grand a year, that's good enough. But we're overcomplicating this. There are people who are doctors, there are people who are cab drivers, people who need to keep up their professional qualifications. That's a different matter. The people who write books even. You can do other things as an MP. What you cannot do, what you must not do, and what you should not be allowed to do is to be a lobbyist for some company that's bidding for government contracts. The minute you start trailing a coat through that slough of mud, then quite frankly, you're bringing Parliament into disrepute. Outside jobs by all means, but not outside lobbying jobs.
You're well within your time. You had 20 seconds still to state your case there, but you've done it so succinctly. Well, John, over to you now. 60 seconds starts now. Should MPs be allowed to do this?
Well, sure. Look, I agree with Stephen that £80,000 a year is a lot of money, far more than the vast majority of people that MPs represent are paid. And so I appreciate that people don't like it when Owen Paterson profits £8,000 a month outside of that. And I think we'll both agree that the situation was handled very poorly, and it reflects a government lacking in both good judgment and competence. But we shouldn't conflate that lack of propriety here with it being morally or professionally wrong for MPs to have second jobs or to be paid more than their constituents. And I think we talk so much about how Westminster is a bubble, that MPs are increasingly divorced from the lives of their constituents or lack relevant work and life experience to do their job properly. I think preventing them from taking up second jobs would only lead to MPs being even further disconnected.
Okay, also well within your time. Goodness me, very efficient, both of you, I must say. Steve, look, I suppose one of the arguments would be if we ban MPs from doing this kind of stuff, then why would people become an MP? A lot of these people, if we want to attract the best, could just go and line their pockets in the city, couldn't they?
Well, let them clear off and line their pockets in the city, and don't try to debase British politics even further. Not that it's not a very, very high bar at the present time. Look, if you want to make money, go and make money. I've got no problem with that. I'm intensely relaxed, as Peter Mandelson used to say. But what I do object to is somebody who is on the one hand claiming to represent 70 or 80,000 constituents, and on the other hand claiming that they can actually get £500,000 over 3 or 4 years, demonstrably not doing their job. And John makes an important point about access, being outside the bubble. Well, frankly, if you're doing your job properly, you should be in your constituency. You should be out of the bubble. Anyone who locks themselves away in the gilded corridors of Westminster, in the caliginosity of that sort of dark building, then they are out of touch. Get into your patch. Get involved in your local communities. Do the things that an MP should be doing. Don't fill your boots, and above all, don't go and see Minister and say a mate of mine would
Stephen,
like a
can I just get some clarity? Do you make a distinction between sort of jobs that are in consulting and lobbying, etc., and something like Theresa May? So the Sun is reporting that Theresa May earns £760 from after dinner speeches, for example.
£760.
Sorry, 760,000.
I was going to say we could get
that would be a very low
my 30th.
After dinner speeches. So do you make a distinction between the types of jobs and the way they're actually making money, or do you just want a sort of blanket ban?
No. I don't go down that route anymore. Look, I don't. When you say Theresa May earned it, I'm not entirely sure "earned" is the right word. She certainly received an enormous amount of money. Look, there's people like Dr. Dan Bolter, people like Dr. Alan Khan. They're doctors and they're carrying on working because if they didn't, they'd actually lose their professional qualification. So I am differentiating. After dinner speeches, fine, by all means, it's part of the job. But the minute you go and work for a company that has an interest in government contracts, frankly, you should be out and you should not be doing it, and you're not fit to be an MP.
Yeah. All right. And John, what do you say to that?
Look, I believe that MPs should absolutely be motivated primarily by wanting to represent their constituents and enact positive change. And so I agree with Steve that they should be in their patch, as it were. But the reality is that many have to take a huge pay cut to do that job. I think the average cut from the 2010 intake was around £30,000 a year. And it means what we end up with are MPs who have inherited wealth, who can afford to take such a cut, to go out and take on the expensive job of campaigning to become an MP. And I think by not allowing MPs, second jobs, although I think Stephen has provided a much more nuanced case than perhaps expected, would be forcing a sort of a quasi-religious vow of dedication on them. You'd ask them to sort of sacrifice their material conditions and their previous interests to dedicate themselves to the work of being an MP, which sometimes could rule out enthusiastic,
should we just pay them more then, John?
people.
Should we just pay them more then? Because then that way, you know, they don't necessarily have to go and get another job. You also can maybe still attract some of the best and the brightest, as it were, who could go and generate wealth elsewhere if they wanted to. Should we raise MPs' salaries?
I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made for that, but I don't see why, in most cases, they couldn't kind of make up the difference by carrying on with an existing job that they have.
What about?
I'm sorry. I think there's two aspects to this, quite honestly. The one is the MP filling his or her boot. The other one, which is equally disgraceful in many ways, is this business about political parties. I mean, it's an extraordinary coincidence that every treasurer of the Conservative Party for the last 20-odd years has ended up in the House of Lords. Obviously, it's a complete coincidence. But there is an issue there, and I think we could address that by what's called short money, where political parties actually get money for secretarial support, and you don't have to go having these dodgy black-tie dinners and picking up your £3 million here and there. So that's one issue, and I think with that comes the question of the House of Lords. Do we actually need 800 people in the House of Lords, the second biggest legislature in the world after I think it's a Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. So do we actually need that? But when it comes to individual MPs, perfectly simple. Second jobs, by all means, subject to investigation and approval by an independent body of 3 or 5 people, randomly selected maybe from the public, because we all know if it looks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. If you're working for a company that's got government contracts in mind, then you are getting weighed off, and you should not be, you should be laid off.
Absolutely. Well, if it looks like a duck, we're probably paying for its duck pond house, aren't we, if history is anything to go by.